Unfortunately, there are so many brilliant and inspiring stories by activists and creatives and thought leaders of all kinds that will never get told because they get lost in the early stages of ideation and inspiration and then washed away. And I am someone who was fortunate enough to go through the same path, and yet I had a creative epiphany that enabled me to overcome near creative burnout and publish a book that I'm so proud of and become a freelance writer and a writing coach for others when I really thought I might just end up sticking with a day job. So I'm going to tell you for the next few minutes a little bit about how I got from there to here. So a little bit about me. My name is Rebecca Martinez. I am a freelance writer, author, and community organizer in Portland, Oregon. And part of my mission is to help support others in getting from where they are creatively into where they want to be. So when I started out, I had just gotten a divorce, and I had gone from being a suburban housewife to a single mom, working, trying to find my way in the world, and trying to make the most of this newfound freedom that I had pursued in getting a divorce and stepping out on my own because I wanted to have a fulfilling life. I wanted to feel aligned with my purpose. I wanted to be in touch with what that purpose might even be and free all this passion that was inside of me to contribute to the world in a meaningful way and have a life that I felt mattered. So I was struggling for a couple of years because not only was I dealing with the logistical elements of creating a life on my own, I was really trying to make time to go inward and find the clarity of my own message to the world, my own purpose, and where I fit within these larger movements. And so the internal struggle I was having is that I was so resistant to even diving into those things. And part of it was imposter syndrome in the sense that who am I and why am I important? Why does my story matter? And so maybe it's better if I just avoid it. If I just distract myself and numb out and go do hobbies and participate in sports and date people and farm and garden and fill my time with 100 other things, then maybe I will never sit still long enough to get to the heart of my purpose and my passion. And maybe I can just distract myself all the way through life. And I realized that was not going to be fulfilling for me because I had left my marriage specifically so that I could create a more fulfilling, meaningful life. So I made a promise to myself. I knew that I was running from things in my own past, from family trauma and from my own memories and things that I just didn't want to revisit. And I said, okay, we are going to write a book and digest the things that have gone on and make sense of them and get back to the heart of things, because I knew that going back to the roots was what would propel me forward in a meaningful way. And so I spent 3 years working on this book. But after 3 years of picking it up and putting it down probably 10 different times, I looked at what I had to show for it. And it was just this file folder of a bunch of disjointed files that really read more like journal entries that even I didn't want to read, even though it was about my own life. So I thought no one else is going to want to read this, and I'm not any closer to the clarity that I've been seeking. The chapters themselves were reflecting the murky, hazy lack of clarity that I was feeling at that time. And so I was feeling so ashamed and discouraged, and I felt like I was no closer to the life of clarity and purpose and focus that I had sought out years before. And I had all but given up on it. When friends asked me how the book was going, I would just tell them like, we all know what it feels like to try and evade a question because we're not proud that we have broken a promise to ourselves or not kept a commitment. And this was my commitment that I had not kept. So I had all but forgotten about it. And as if by magic, I was at a birthday party one summer afternoon. It was 2019, summertime, and I met this woman while we were eating birthday cake, and she said, oh, I am a book editor and an artist, and so part of what I do is I help give creatives the structure they need to bring their passions and their projects to life. And I was like, you exist? And I didn't mention at the time that I was working on a book because at the time I had next to nothing to show for it. But I took her card And it was like this kind of beacon for me that maybe there is a path and maybe there is help. And maybe what I've been doing wrong isn't that I don't care enough or that I'm not working hard enough. Maybe it's that I don't have the support and the structure to know how to walk through the steps of bringing this vision to life. And maybe if I had those things, I could actually fulfill this promise to myself. And so my son went to kindergarten that fall, and I thought, you know what? It's now or never. I can't keep digging around and pretending I'm going to do something I'm not. So let's find out once and for all. So I gave myself 8 weeks. I said, okay, if I can write a manuscript and complete it before my 29th birthday, then I'm going to launch it on Kickstarter and raise the funds to hire an editor and to see this project all the way through to completion. And so that's what I did. I deleted all my social media accounts, I canceled all my non-essential commitments, and I let everyone I loved know, hey, if you don't hear from me in the next 2 months, nothing's wrong. My mental health is fine. I still love you. I have to write my book. And that's what I did. So when my son was sleeping, I wrote. When I was done working every day, I wrote. When he was away for the weekends, I wrote. And I just locked myself in my room with my laptop, page one, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And soon the sounds of tears and laughter started emanating out into the hallway from my room, because I had started to dig back underneath all these layers of distraction and conditioning that I had put on myself and discover what was underneath. And it was so emotionally cathartic and so amusing and also painful. And I realized that this is why I had been avoiding it all along, because to find out my own purpose and to do something I felt passionately about would cost me something emotionally. It would cost me something energetically. And I had to go back and do a kind of work that I had been avoiding doing. And a deep part of me had known that if I'm going to do something great, it's going to cost me something. And I wasn't ready before, but here I was, and I was doing it. And so the closer the deadline came, the more afraid I felt, because I thought, oh, what if I fail? What if I go through all this? Everybody knows I'm working on this, and what if I just can't do it? What if I give up? And then a part of me was thrilled, thinking, what if I actually do this? What if I write a book? What if I finish it and see it through? What is that going to feel like when I hand my book to people who have bought it from me, or when I hear from them how they felt reading it? And so that was what drove me through across the finish line. So I finished this book and I launched my Kickstarter, and I said, okay, everyone, it's done. I have a 300-page manuscript. I'm going to try and raise $1,500 over the next 29 days, and please tell your friends. So I woke up the next morning and went to check in on the numbers, and I was shocked. My friends had all bought my book. They had shared it with their communities. Tons of other people I didn't know had bought my book before it was even a book. And we had raised over $1,500 in the first 24 hours of the fundraiser. So I took it as a sign from the universe. You did the right thing. You stepped forward in alignment. You committed. You worked your ass off for 2 months, and your community has your back. The universe has your back. So keep going forward. And so I ended up hiring the woman who I had met at the birthday party to be my editor. And it took a year of difficulty, because any author will tell you that writing the manuscript is the first step. And after that is the editing and revision process. And that is just as laborious, if not more laborious, than writing, because you have to be discerning and you have to make tough calls. And my editor was amazed. She said, "Where's your outline?" And I said, "What outline?" She said, "How did you write this? You didn't use an outline?" And I thought she was impressed, but she was really like, well, now we need to take this stack of story that you gave me and create structure around it. And that was the real work. And so I let her do a lot of the logistical things, and I dove deep into researching and compiling tools for myself of what makes a good story. What what makes good action within a story? How do I digest these things that are coming up as I'm telling these stories? And ultimately, what do I do with these insights that I've been given? And how do I integrate them into my life and let them inform the way that I live going forward? Because ultimately, that was the most important thing to me. So I compiled all this information and I used it to take this really raw manuscript and over the course of a year, turn it into the book that I ended up publishing. And it felt so good to get those books published. When they first arrived, I just cried, and it felt like this huge monumental moment that I would never forget of having fulfilled a commitment to myself and kept a promise to myself. And that was, bottom line, more than the satisfaction of mailing them out to hundreds of people, some I knew, some I didn't know, more than the emotion of hearing feedback from people and the ways that they were deeply impacted by the stories that I told, which made all of that hard work worth it to me. Deeper than all of that was the simple fact that I had fulfilled a promise that I had made to myself. And even deeper than that, I had found a sense of clarity, and through the act of telling my story, I had drawn out certain threads of my own truth that informed the way that I live now, because I understand certain deeply held patterns and beliefs and values and rhythms to my life that I couldn't identify until I went back to the beginning and really unlocked and digested the life I had led. And so once I shipped out all of the books, I took a much needed break, and by this point it was my 30th birthday. It had been a year process since I had run the Kickstarter. And so I shipped out all the books and I got on the road and I headed south to California for a week and a half to myself of just quiet. And as I was driving over the first few days, I would sit at campsites and I was getting all of these text messages and emails and DMs from some people I knew and some I didn't know saying, "Oh my God, your story is making me remember things about my story that I had buried in the past." Or, "Wow, how did you write this? I have been working on a book for years and I feel stuck." Or, "This is so authentic. I wish I had the courage to be this authentic." And I realized when I wrapped up that California trip and came home that my work was not done, because there was such a clear need in the community that had been handed to me. People were saying, "How did you do this? And how can I do this?" And I knew how they could, because I had just gone through 4 years of struggle to figure out how to do it. And the last thing I wanted is for all these people who have such beautiful stories that are worthy of being told, such brilliant businesses and causes that they lead, to be stuck and floundering for the years that I was. And so I took everything that I had compiled through the process of my own book and I sorted it out into an online course. And that's why I'm so excited to tell you today about the new Unlock Your Story course that I've created. It's an online self-paced course for creatives, activists, emerging thought leaders, and individuals who are interested in doing their healing work and diving deeper into understanding what makes them tick and where they've been and how that informs where they're headed. So I would love to have you check it out. There's more details below. If you are someone who is inspired by the process of creation and who has just felt like you need a little bit more structure and some guidance in getting from where you are to these really worthwhile goals you have, then I invite you to check it out. All the details are below, and good luck unlocking your story.